All right, welcome to the welcome to the Straight Red Card. You know, I should have like a beginning. I notice a lot of the shows, like the Chelsea guy, Benson. He always starts his show with "Hey guys." That's how he starts every show. And you know, I noticed that Peter, our guy Peter at 11EX, is doing that now. Have you noticed that?
Always have to have some form of an intro.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I could pull one off, Brett. I don't know. I thought of like something like "Good Morning Vietnam," but then people will be like, "What the fuck does that mean?" So, all right. So we'll just stick with our boring entry. It's so 2011 of us to just start the show with "Welcome to the Straight Red Card." Instead
Always
of,
got to start with. We got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Things will eventually pick up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's pop up Brett's starting 11 for the Olympic roster. And I mean, I really can't argue with this. It looks a lot like Pete's on 11 Yanks. I mean, did you have any slight differences with him? I can't remember. I'm guessing I know one that you did, and that you have Kessler instead of who do you have there? Glad.
Yeah.
I think he had Justin Glad instead of Kessler. I think we all know what Glad is. He's kind of a slow-footed.
Yeah, I feel like when with the experience with Glad in that sense.
Yeah, Glad's older. God, it does seem like Glad has been around forever, not playing much for Salt Lake. I mean, he has been around a long time, not doing much and not impressing much of anybody. So I guess it makes sense. But I guess because of his lack of development, I almost assume he's still under 20. Oh my God, what does that say about me? Well, what does it say about Justin Glad? I don't think
that there are other options out there.
Exactly.
Nothing against him, but still.
Well, I think Peter mentioned his show. The center backs are it's the weakest part of this team. And you're a Chicago Fire guy.
I'm perfectly content with Pineda back there.
I think he's good with his feet. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's bounced between playing center defensive midfielder and center back throughout his career. When I say his career, through playing youth in the Fire Academy and then North Carolina, and then as well a couple games for Fire. Predominantly though, still center back, but he's comfortable with his feet. He's cool under pressure. I am perfectly fine with Pineda back there.
Yeah, I don't think Pineda's my big worry. And people worry about Kessler. I mean, if you watch him play with the Revs last season, I don't know why you'd be that worried. He's a pretty reliable center back. I mean, he doesn't make many mistakes or stupid mistakes. He's really good with positioning. I think that's probably actually his strongest suit. He's always, where he needs to be. So he doesn't, make any dumb mistakes, and he doesn't give up space easily. He's not particularly quick, but he's not horrible with his feet. And this is all based off the 14 games I watched him play last season in MLS. So I think he's a serviceable guy. Is he going to be on the U.S. men's national team anytime soon? No, probably not. Might he compete for one later? I don't know, maybe, but
that would require quite a few players, promising players that are seeing playing time in Europe now, not developing.
I would agree. I think he's not better than Matt Miazga, and I don't think he's better than Aaron Long. And so he's got some climbing to do, because those two guys I just mentioned are still behind, well, people might debate this, but certainly behind Brooks. And then you've got Richards getting regular time at Hoffenheim, and that kind of puts him at another level as well.
A little off topic there, but I still can't believe anybody would not rank Richards at this point as the second option.
I think they're just kind of scared because he's so young, and I don't blame them for that. Young people can make rash decisions, but
if you've watched him play at Hoffenheim, he's not one to make rash decisions. He's not like Miazga was.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's very again. I'm going to use a lot of the same terms here, but he's very calm. He's collect. He positions himself well. And again, this is off topic, but it has to be said.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, there's one thing that Richards is, and he's a cool-headed guy. I mean, I do worry sometimes about his aggressiveness. Like,
Hmm.
does he have enough?
Done
Or is he
well in
just,
the past handful of games.
yeah, or is he just doing the right thing? And then I have the opposite worries for Miaska. Is he going to get hot headed and get her card or grab somebody by the man sack? So, you know, just totally opposite worries. Like Richards would never do that. Yeah,
Let's find a happy medium somewhere in there.
somewhere between grabbing the man sack and not being very aggressive. Yeah. So I'm fine with it being Kessler or Glad, but I'd rather actually see Kessler because I know what Glad is and Glad. But this isn't an experiment. I mean, these are qualifiers, so I guess this is really coming down to who's better. And quite frankly, from what I've seen from Glad for 4 or 5 years, I'm not impressed. And what I saw from Kessler was somebody who was well coached, maybe, because he was always in the right position. But that's a quality, right? I mean, being in the right place at the right time is a quality. Knowing where you need to be when the ball is in this space and that space, and where to move your body to deny your opponent scoring. Is he Franz Beckenbauer? No, but hey, he's going to have to do in this particular lineup. Um, Arajo, Vines. I don't know how you could disagree. First of all, we're only bringing 3 wide players, so that only leaves Aaron Herrera, who is about as generic as a player as you can find.
He's serviceable as a replacement on either side. Whoever needs to be filled in. So
Right, he can play on the left or the right.
sure.
I like Vines, so I'm glad he's there. Arajo, has a lot of potential, so maybe this will be a time for him to shine. But yeah, no debates on that at all. I don't think there's anything to even talk about. Ewell, yeah, this is where Ewell's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's going to be at the CDM. He's going to be at the quarterback spot, and he's going to be sort of guiding the flow of play.
I mean, that's where he's played with the national team, and it just makes sense.
Yeah, and he'll bring experience because he's got that national team experience. Now, you could put Cardoso in that box or in that position if you wanted to, but you know what? I wouldn't waste his talent there.
Well, yeah, and Peter brought up a good point in that. And our midfield is not the midfield we're bringing is not the most overly creative group.
Right.
So having Cardoso back at number 6 would be fine, but quite frankly, they probably are going to push him up. Let him have a little more free run of the midfield, if you will.
They absolutely have to push him up because who else is Pereira's not an attacking midfield. He's not an artistic. He's not a guy who's going to find a lane to get this and stream this little pass down like the narrow opening. That's not Pereira's game. Is also kind of being a little defensive, but I mean he's got decent feet. But I haven't seen anything out of that guy to say that's a can opener. When I look at Cardoso and watch him play, I think that guy can open cans. So Pereira, it's not that. He's more Ewell-ish than he is.
I think what we'll end up seeing, assuming that my prediction here was accurate, and the reason I went with these 3 in the midfield is that it's gonna offer more of a stability with that 4-3-3 that we have, and it's gonna give that more defensive approach, a little not necessarily parking the bus, but it definitely gives them a little more stability moving forward in that sense. But I think you'll see a bit of interchanging between the 3 if it is these 3, because any one of them can get up into the attack, and then there's plenty of defensive-minded prowess there that can check back.
Yeah, I mean this whole roster is weird to me anyhow because let's look at a guy like Kasani Dotson, who's listed as a midfielder. He's really a wide player. So, I mean, I don't know what his role is going to be except to maybe come off the bench for Mihalovic when he's exhausted. Or, I mean, because Sebastian Soto would be the backup for Linez, right? And I think Pete said he's a one-trick pony. I mean, that's absolutely right. He's got one move. And that's why after 3 or 4 games at UNAM, he's been riding pine, not playing or not even in the roster. So people figure it out. Oh, he's got one move. And so I guess he's the backup for Linez. And other than that, I mean, it's a really stripped down roster. there's not a whole lot of choices here. But let's move up. I mean, you got Mihailovic on one wing and Lanez on the other. Yeah, I don't see who else you're going to put there.
Lewis would be the only other option. But I mean,
oh yeah, Lewis for Mihailovic maybe.
Could be. I would say Jordy's played most of last season with Fire out as an out wide position opposite of Frankowski. So I know that the thought process was, and he's listed as a midfielder, thought process that he was going to probably play in the midfield. I don't see that happening. I see him going to be more pressed into the attack, and he could be that player that plays those that breaks down the defense and plays those slotted balls. But I just think he's going to be more along the lines of one of our outside wings.
Chicago valued Mihailovic so much they let him go to Montreal
for a shit ton of money.
Yes,
it was like $1 million of MLS funny money.
I mean, Montreal must be smoking some incredible weed up north to spend that much for Mihailovic. I really don't get it. Maybe you can explain it to me since you're a Fire fan.
I like Jordy, and I would have loved to have kept him on the squad by all means. But we're Chicago's bringing in a bunch of players that are just going to upseat them, and they're younger too and faster. And
they're all better than they're better than Mihailovic?
Well, I'm assuming I haven't actually seen these players, so I can't quite say that. I guess I'm going to take that back. Chicago plays their first preseason game tomorrow, so maybe I'll see some of them play. But the coaching staff appears to be pretty high on them, and quite frankly, when you get a deal for like I said, about $100 million, it was like $1 million MLS funny money. How could you say no?
Yeah, but all right, I get all that. But obviously, all the coaches at Chicago were like, yeah, he's good, but that's pretty much all you're going to get out of him. Has he hit a ceiling? Is he done, or is there more growth here for Mihailovic?
I think he's going to be a serviceable MLS player for a while. He could have had a successful career at Chicago. Well, assuming Chicago has a successful season.
Yeah.
But he could have done well there, and I'm sure he's going to do well in Montreal. But quite frankly, again, when you're offered that deal, you can't say no. And that's going to do is that's just going to pay down a bunch of other players that are going to request a hell of a lot more money. So
I get it, but man, Montreal gave up a lot.
I was surprised by the amount as well.
I was shocked.
I like Jordy, and I hope he does well. I'm just going to flat out say that.
Okay, well, I mean, that's good. He's a Chicago guy, so you
God, I hope I get hit on that one. Georgia.
Now, Lanez, I mean, geez, of course. I mean, that makes sense. I'm a little worried he hasn't played for a long time, that he was injured before he, hadn't played. After or before he was, not playing for a long time. But, his performances have been pretty good with U.S. Men's national team, so I think he'll be fine.
In fairness, it's been 5 months since Lewis has played? So, not his fault by any means.
Lewis? Well, he just played a friendly at least.
Well, okay, I'll grant you that. But so did Lanez, though. And Soto, too. They both played friendlies.
When's the last friendly that Lanez played?
You're playing me on this?
It is a while ago,
Brett. It has to be one of the November friendlies. I'm pretty positive he was on that roster.
Yeah, but that's still, February.
Again, it take away Lewis's friendlies that he had with the December-January camps. Would have been the same time frame. I'm just saying.
But I'm just saying the Lewis one was
earlier.
Recent.
Yes, I agree. I'll agree with that.
Now Soto, you have Soto up top. Did Pete have Soto up top?
No.
Who do you have up top?
Ferreira. Which I'd be more than happy with that with him up there too. I'm going with Soto's experience with the youth national teams. And his time he was having until recently, and again, even the playing time he was having was limited too. But I don't know. He has that poacher's mind, and I'm fine with that. But I'm also fine with Ferrer, so it doesn't matter to me.
I guess the question really is because the requirement now from Greg Berhalter in US Soccer is that all of our youth teams use the same style and the same, not necessarily formation, but playing style. And if that's the case, probably Jesus Ferreira is going to start because he can come back and get the ball.
Sure.
Soto
he
doesn't.
He had a hell of a first game with the Nats. So
Yeah, Soto is a mosier. He moseys.
Sure.
He doesn't. He's not a guy that's going to run all over the field, and that's actually was the criticism from not only Hanover and his youth coaches, but apparently they had a little problem with that as well when he was in Holland. We'll see. Obviously, Norwich City didn't have a problem with it. They signed him.
Yeah.
But I think if Soto really wants to make a case for himself going forward, maybe he doesn't think he has to because he's got other options. But once he plays this game, he's capped. So, right. Don't the Olympics cap you as well?
I would imagine so, since it's a FIFA regulated event.
But it's not. It's outside.
Oh, you're right. It isn't.
Yeah, it's run by the Olympic Committee. So
maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I have to bone up on that. Tell you
God, me too. And I'm really good at that stuff. Somehow that just slipped, my focus. And I would assume it would, because it would still count as an international tournament that's recognized by FIFA. So we will figure this out, and we'll talk about it later. Once we figure it out, we haven't figured it out. I just got into the FIFA eligibility rules. I'm going down this long fucking, oh my God, it's going to take me forever to get to. I just searched the word Olympics and got nothing. So let me see here. So yeah, we're not going to find this out right now. But, the whole thing is this team good enough to beat Costa Rica? If you think Costa Rica is just going to roll over for us, guys, you got another thing coming? Not talking to you, Brett. They're not. And this is not going to be an easy game. I mean, listen, they got a lot of players that play regularly in Costa Rica's league, which is not bad. They have a few abroad players that'll be there that are young, but some of them also, like some of our players, have caps for the actual Costa Rican national team. So they're not going to just roll over for us. And this is not going to be as easy as some people think it is. So, well, I mean,
in all honesty, it would be a good indication as far as our development in MLS. These are the teams that we have to compete with, and we can't necessarily call in our players from Europe to come and slide in. So, and even then, we're seeing some MLS teams saying no, we're not releasing our players. Atlanta nixed Robinson and Bello as options. That would have been a nice surefire shoring up our defense there. But I mean, you're starting to see MLS clubs even saying, nah, I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, it would be nice. I don't quite think it's as important as Pete seems to think the Olympics are. He thinks, and so does tactical manager, that it's really important that we go to the Olympics because people watch the Olympics. Yeah, they do. They watch women's Olympic soccer. I'm not sure that men's Olympic soccer gets much coverage, much feature, even on Olympic coverage.
I mean, watching women's Olympic soccer is just like watching women's soccer. I mean, it's the same team.
Yes, it is. It is the same team.
I mean, it would be no different in that sense. But I look at the Olympics, and it'd be nice to get back into it, simply to give some younger players, an opportunity to perform at a higher level, at a higher international level like that.
Well, here's my point.
Not necessarily to say top tier, because obviously we have players like McKinney and Pulisic, and insert any number of starting U.S. national team players that could play for the Olympic team.
Yes, well, listen, we've never really sent our best players to the Olympics. They're usually college kids, and going back in time, it was never our top guys on our team, which is why even if we make the Olympics, our top guys are not playing in the Olympics this year. No one's tuning in to not. I mean, Pulisic's not playing, and McKenny's not playing, and Adams isn't going to play. And we can go down the list. The list goes very long. Guest isn't going to play in the Olympics. All the players that people are really interested in or excited about, that get some press here in the United States, they're not playing. So to think that people are going to tune into that game here in the United States just because we made the Olympics, but they don't know a single player on the team. They've never heard of any of them, even in passing. Everyone's heard of Pulisic. I don't care who you are now. Everyone has heard that name. Everybody knows he's our first Pele or whatever you want to call him. There's not enough players on this team that anybody knows. So to think, unlike the women who bring the actual full women's national team to the Olympics, because they can, we can't, and we don't. So I disagree with both of them on that. I don't think Olympic soccer is going to change or nudge an inch. It's not going to make an inch worth of difference. No one's still going to care.
It won't make an inch of difference for viewership and the growth of the game, unless we say win it or whatever. But what would make it, I guess, and this is the point I was making, what it would make a difference is it does grant these players who may not necessarily be abroad in Europe, like we were mentioning, the number of players that could play for the Olympic squad, but probably won't, because if you're constantly playing and contending for a top spot in a top tier league in Europe, do you take a couple months, what would normally be your preseason, or your time off within your preseason to go and play a handful of games somewhere else, possibly get injured?
Yeah,
it might not be worth it. So, it'd be nice to see some of the U20s that didn't get the opportunity to have a U20 World Cup this year get a look at. I mean, that is all fine and dandy.
Yeah. I'm all for that, but that's just more reason that people aren't going to be flocking to the bars on top of COVID or whatever and watching and cheering like it's the World Cup or the Women's World Cup or a Women's Olympic game, because they're just not going to do it. Number one, because already people's, views of the U.S. men's national team right now are down. And I don't think my point is, whether we make the Olympics or not doesn't have anything to do with the growth of soccer in this country. It has all to do with what you said, young players getting a chance to play. And I disagree.
I would say the one downside by not qualifying for the Olympics is then we got to listen to a bunch of people bitch and moan about not making the Olympics. Another cycle.
There will be some people who bitch and moan about making the Olympics. I do think we have a team right now that is very susceptible to not make the Olympics. I think the team representing us, I don't think they're going to roll over Costa Rica. I think everyone's going to roll over the Dominican Republic, all of Mexico, us, Costa Rica. We're all rolling over that team. So now it's about U.S., Mexico, Costa Rica, and who survives from those three to be the last two. And the fact is, I think Mexico will probably bring a pretty strong team, but like our team, will be young and relatively inexperienced in big matches. But they're a strong team. And there is a good chance we could lose to Costa Rica and lose to Mexico and not make the Olympics.
And I haven't looked at any of the rosters of the other opposition, but from what I understand with Mexico is they're not bringing any of their first team eligible players.
No.
But saying that, they're still going to have a strong squad. They're still going to have talented players, doing what Mexico does. So that's going to be a tough game. The big important game really is going to be against Costa Rica, and we'll see what happens there.
I got to say, a lot of the players that Mexico are bringing get playing time pretty regularly in Liga MX. And they're playing on teams like Pumas, Guadalajara, Atlas. They're not that good this year, but Necaxa, America, Monterrey. So they're going to have a good Santos Laguna. And I believe one of the players they have on their roster is Santiago Munoz, an American born in the United States. He is on their roster for the Olympics qualifying. So maybe it isn't cap time, but I don't know. We'll talk to you about that later. Let's get to the next part of the show.